This is not the first time we see EasySMX doing this, and I most certainly hope it isn't the last, which is to take one of their previous models and bring out a Pro version, which is the case for the X05 and now X05 Pro. This is the limited edition because of the color scheme. And so we'll unbox it and I'll give you my thoughts throughout this video. But before I do want to thank EasySMX for sending this one for review. Of course, that has no impact on my opinions, no money change hands, and they see the video at the same time as you. The X05 Pro will range from 36 USD to 40 USD, and the difference is the regular colors versus the limited edition, which is what I have in my hands. And the other options would be black and white if you don't want to go for this model. We have some features such as Hall effect sticks, RGB, super silent buttons, which is going to be something interesting to test. Trigger vibration, that's interesting. That's a feature we don't really see a whole lot, so I'm excited to see how that's going to feel. You know what? Let's just dive in. We have a USB-C to USB-A cable, pretty standard, a user manual. You're going to see a bunch of things, basically shortcuts, because if you don't know, EasySMX never has a companion app, or at least I haven't seen that from that brand. So it's going to be very important to have the manual to remember the shortcuts so that you can make adjustments. But if you buy this one, make sure not to throw away that manual. We have a 2.4 gigahertz dongle, which is going to be part of the performance by the end of the video. Our controller, the EasySMX X05 Pro. Phase buttons, membrane, indeed quite silent, not to the point that you wouldn't hear them at all, but they're definitely not noisy buttons, at least not from the first impression. The D-pad is tactile but muted. It's also, considering that it's a tactile D-pad, it's also fairly silent. Your sticks are Hall effect, so no risks for drift, and we'll see how good those Hall effects are, because, you know, Hall effect is great for the no drift notion, but I find that especially if you're playing a lot of shooters, some will do better than others. We don't have any metal rings, but we do have an anti-skid around the stick themselves. So it gives you, for the most part, a nice gliding experience. Our bumpers are tactile, but also muted. We have some extras as well up top. And we have our triggers, which we do have a hair trigger that is software corrected, so it's not a full stop. It's not a button essentially, but you do have that option, which is nice. You have your mode switch, pogo pin, so I would assume that a charging dock does exist, but that is not something that was sent to me. We have slightly rubberized grip in the back. No 3.5mm jack or anything like that. USB-C up top, of course. Select, start, capture, mode, do all your adjustment, turbo, macro, all that kind of stuff. Your home button right here. I don't know if it comes through on the camera. Right now it's blue, but when I'm looking at it, it looks more purple. So depending on the angle, this limited edition will shift from blue to purple. And right now, as I change the angle, you could think that I'm holding a different controller, but it's actually the exact same. It's just the angle that makes it look so different in terms of colors. In terms of ergonomics, the X05 was a quite comfortable controller to hold, Xbox style in terms of DNA, and that doesn't change here. It feels nice, holds nice, but much like the original X05, one thing that is not present with the X05 Pro is gyro. There is just no gyro at all. It will work for Switch, where gyro is probably one of the more used consoles when it comes to that specific feature, although PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3 also had gyro. I feel like it's maybe not as common on those platforms. On Nintendo, however, it's definitely more present. So if you intend to play a lot of gyro game, just know that the X05 Pro has not added gyro, just like it was the case with the X05. It's just not a thing on this product. But in terms of rumble, we do have it in the grip, and as I mentioned a moment ago, we also have it in the trigger, so that's going to be interesting. A couple of shortcuts that we have. And actually, you know what? Let me bring up gamepad tester for this. To activate turbo, you want to hold M and push the button that you're trying to put turbo on. So right now, if I push A, you'll notice that it behaves normally. If I hold M, hold A for about a second, release, it vibrates to let me know that now turbo is activated. And you'll notice that this little LED will flash to let you know that turbo is on this current button. To take it off, you just repeat the process. And voila, turbo is gone. To map your top paddle, you want to hold M and push the top paddle that you're trying to remap. So in this case, I'm going to do the right one. It'll start flashing red. So this tells me that it's currently recording. If I click my right stick, for example, and now push the button again, it now is mapped as a button. So I can hold it and you'll see that the right stick is activated. And when I release, it lets it go. But if I wanted to do two buttons at the same time, so I'm going to hold M and remap it and say A and X. Push both at the same time, and push again. The moment you do 2 buttons, even if I try to hold, you'll notice that it immediately lets go, because the moment you have more than a button, it's being recorded as a macro. And macro is going to be a series of buttons that you push and record, which is going to respect the timings. If I do A, hold it for a couple, do XXA, and then lock it. As you can see, it's repeating exactly the same sequence while still repeating the timings at which I did them. So that's also a feature that is part of that specific controller. You can address your RGB. The way that you want to do this is tap M 2 times. It vibrates to let you know that you're now in RGB mode. If you do up and down left stick, it's gonna, no, actually, if you click, the left stick, it's gonna adjust the brightness. So by clicking, you'll see that the brightness is going to different levels. If you do up and down, what it does is actually shift the modes. So you can cycle from a couple of modes. You can do left and right to change the color and go to whatever you want. I just like this one because it has all the, the nice colors. Looks fancy, but that one doesn't have a left or right mode. So it's going to depend. You just want to try a bunch of options. And once you're set, you just hold the M button for about a second. And there you go, you're locked in. Now it's not doing anything anymore. You can address the dead zone. So right now I have removed any potential dead zone. I barely brushed the stick and it moves. The way that you want to take this off is by holding the stick, pushing down the stick, the right stick specifically, and then the capture button. So we'll push it down, hold the capture button, it's going to vibrate. And now there's a little bit of dead zone. Not a whole lot, but there's a little bit of it. And once you do that, it will do it for both sticks. If we test circularity, right now we are on a raw kind of mode. So if you hold your left stick and then push the capture button, so same operation but with the left stick instead, it's going to change your stick from a raw mode to a corrected mode. So you can also address that. And of course, once you do it, it will address both of your sticks at once. Therefore, you cannot differentiate the left stick to right stick. You either have the feature on for both or off for both. You can address your vibration by holding M and doing left stick up or left stick down to either decrease or increase. And once you hit the maximum, you don't feel any vibration anymore, letting you know that you are maxed out. And for the trigger vibration, what it does actually is have that feature where the more you push it, the more it vibrates when you activate it. Push the left trigger and push the capture button for a couple of seconds, about 2 seconds. And then there you go. The vibration is now activated in the triggers, which I'll have you hear during the audio test. The last thing is going to be calibration. And to do that, you want to hold back, B, and home for a couple of seconds. This little light will start flashing, which means that it's ready for calibration. You want to turn both of your sticks a couple of times, about 3 to 4 times, slowly. Then you want to do the same with your triggers. So all the way in, about 4 times each. You can do both at the same time. I don't know why I done them one at a time. And then once you're done, you just push B and you'll notice that this will stop flashing. And this means that we are now calibrated. And so since these controllers don't have software, I guess those shortcuts are as close as one as you'll get. And now let's do the audio test. Stick tremor. Funny enough, I'm only getting some on the left stick. Whether dead zone is activated or not, only my left stick has stick tremor, and you can just follow the timestamp here. You see that it's climbing. That's because it's constantly registering a little bit of tremor, which is probably not going to show up in games, but just so you know, it's present. Axis snapping, none at all. Stick snapback, oh yeah. There's actually a whole lot of it. Circle error for the raw mode looks like this. Corrected looks like this. With dead zone deactivated, I believe that no, there's truly no dead zone. As for gap dead zone, I believe the increments are also consistent. When looking at outer dead zone, we have a little bit less than the usual. I would have expected a couple more, to be honest, but I mean, there's always a little bit, but there's not a whole lot here. Stick tension sits at 60 TGF and stick resolution sits at 0.0039. D-pad. And just before we go any further, recently I reviewed a controller, I can't remember which, but I talked about how I felt like the feel of the body was kind of not scratching my skin, but it was sort of gripping on my skin in an uncomfortable way. And I'm really sucks to say, but for me, the D-pad, and that might be specific to the limited edition, but the coating on the housing doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me at all. But that same coating appears to be on the D-pad as well, and it's just not lending itself very nicely to, especially if I was playing fighting, it's like it's gripping my thumb. It's kind of weird. It's a weird feeling. So I kind of wish it didn't have that coating. Like even the sound that it makes is, that's weird. Anyways. Back to testing. I don't mind the feel though. I like how it feels like when pushing down. It's very short travel, but it has a satisfying click to it. Because it's short travel, it's not necessarily the best for diagonal focus. Rolling test, other than it's like having this weird grip on my thumb, I feel like I'm pushing extra hard to not stay locked. Otherwise, it's quite decent for the rolling test. Warms up super quick and I'm already feeling some kind of numbness on my thumb. Adjacent directions, yes, I'd say not necessarily the most pleasant for that, but it's definitely feasible. Accidental input, yeah, that's pretty much flawless. You would expect with such a short travel as well. And for the left and right, oh my god, this is quite efficient for the left and right. Okay, that's actually quite good. Center pivot, I mean, you do feel it recess, and that's actually quite impressive. There is a center pivot. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm pushing down right now, and there's no keys activated. There is a center pivot. But the interesting part, it is basically impossible to operate from the center. Like, if you're pushing down that pivot, forget it. So it's it's a pivot, but I don't know that it's there for a good reason. But if you don't push it all the way down, it's still easy to sort of glide, but I don't see how anyone could be precise by rocking it like that. But yeah, I guess if you want to fidget with your D-pad, you could. There is a little bit of dead zone at the trigger, the start of your trigger. Not really any at all at the end though. Yeah, so a little bit of dead zone at the beginning, no dead zone at all at the end of your actuation. Dampening, you do feel some. It's fairly minimalistic. There's not a whole lot of it. If you activate the hair trigger, you don't feel any at all. Like you're straight plastic to plastic. You're raw dogging that trigger like no tomorrow. Oh yeah. And then hair trigger, you know, it's a software corrected, a distance shortened hair trigger. It's not a button, so you don't feel be it a tactile or micro switch. That's just, you're hitting plastic, but it's being corrected in software. Let's get into games. One thing that I'm really surprised with are those hair triggers. I don't usually I don't favor those styles of hair triggers, but those feel really good. That little click that you get as you push it down is very satisfying, requires very little pressure to actuate. That's a very well executed hair trigger. The trigger halt kind of approach where it's distance shortened, I really like the feel of those. You know what? I feel comfortable saying that this is the best sticks I've had on an EasySMX since the X10. Really good sticks. Good job, really. Okay, diagonals are happening, no problem. You know, looking at gamepad tester, it didn't seem like I was gonna hit. Okay, I guess I'm struggling a little bit now. It's not flawless, but it's good. I don't want to hit Ken too much. First. Yeah, okay. No, not the best, not the worst. The sensation is what pulls it back, but like if I overpress and I try to mitigate the sensation, but it's just bringing it even more intensively on my thumb, I feel like I can sort of work past it. That's a D-pad that you want to use a glove. For sure. Like if you're gonna be playing seriously with this, you're gonna use a glove, but it's probably gonna be very nice for Tetris, quite frankly. It does feel good. I like this controller for platformers. It feels good. I think I'm really gonna enjoy the run test, but right now this is solid. This is yeah, where I don't have to rely on rolling my thumb as much. The texture of the D-pad doesn't bother me anywhere near as much. And the other thing too, this is something that you could easily address by having some kind of sticker on your D-pad. So it's not like you're completely out of options. It's still something I think is not necessarily the best executed with this product, just giving it that paint. And again, maybe it is not the case with the non-limited models, because if not for that, I think that D-pad would have done fairly high in my ratings. And the thump on those face buttons, I really enjoy them. Maybe not the, yeah, I don't think those would be the buttons where I'd be the fastest, like if trying to rapid click them, but they do feel nice. And, you know, rapid click is maybe not something that you want to base your decisions on. But beyond that, they are very satisfying to click. And they do require a bit more force than your average button. If you don't mind that, I think they do feel very nice. They have a, I wouldn't even say a nostalgic feeling, because this is a very thumpy button, more than the average. That's probably what allows them to be so silent. But I would argue that they're not. Like, they're not noisy necessarily, but they just have a very low pitch sound. That's what it comes down to. So because they do, and I'm playing super bad right now, but because they do, you may not feel like you hear them as much, but the more I play with them, I feel like they're not silent at all. They're just very thumpy and very low pitch. This is nice, but it might get on your nerves because as far as I can tell, you cannot address the intensity. And it vibrates, like you're really getting a lot of vibrations. But I can't think of a trigger that, like, you're getting that haptic feedback to tune it in. Yeah, this is wild. And especially if I also like don't use headphones or something like that, I also have an auditive feedback, not just feeling it rumbling on my finger. This is quite unique. You don't have a whole lot of controllers that do this, but even the controllers that do, whether it is Impulse Trigger or some of the Gamester controllers or FlyDigi controllers, or the ZDO Plus as well has that feature, it's not the same kind of motor. What they have here is essentially, I hate to say, but it sounds and feels like a cheap motor, but it kind of gives it a unique quality that it's very good to dial it in. it's quite interesting. But at the same time, as cool as it may be, I don't know that someone would want to play like even an hour with that vibration on your finger. It's quite weird. I feel like if I was to play an hour like that, my finger is already starting to feel a little numb from all the vibration. It's quite different. And for performance, I ran a whole lot of tests for this one. So we're going to start with the cable test. And you have a lot of different modes: X input, D input, and switch. And on average, this is a controller that will have a lot of modes, but depending on how you're going to be connected, you're going to want to stick to basically just one mode. And when talking about cable, you want to stick to X input for sure. That's where you get the best button latency, the best stick latency, but also the best pulling rate. In fact, if you want decent pulling rate, it's the only mode you want to rely on. When moving to the dongle mode, however, things completely go wire, which I did not expect. The stick latency was abysmal, terrible even, and the button latency was decent. The pulling rate was as well. It really was just the stick latency. So, you know, if you're going to be buying this controller for shooters, which especially after testing it, I do believe it can hold its own, you're going to have to stick to the wired X input mode, because if you're going dongle, you're going to struggle with those sticks. And then last but not least, Bluetooth connection on the switch mode will do quite well, both in terms of sticks and button latency, but also pulling rate. So definitely, if that is an option that you can leverage on PC for the games you're trying to play, 100% the way that you want to go. At all costs, even though the feature does exist, you want to avoid the D input, but shockingly enough, D input still performed better than X input on Bluetooth. So that's not by any means a controller that you want to use on Bluetooth and X input. It's there, but it could just as well not be. And that brings us to our conclusion, which there's a lot to like with this controller as far as I'm concerned. One of the things that I definitely do like is that it's quite cost efficient. And I also like the thought of EasySMX putting out a pro version of previous products. It's something that Gamester does a whole lot, for example. And I think for a consumer that experienced both the standard product and then the Pro a couple of months, maybe a year later, it's like you're getting into something that you already know what to expect, but better. which I think is such a cool notion for the people who have experienced both the previous and the newer product. And that is exactly what it is with the X05 Pro. The X05 is a controller that, generally speaking, received a lot of praise because it was a very good value. And for them to go pro and bring features that we hardly ever see, the super silent buttons, the rumble in the triggers, it's cool that they're still retaining, once again, very cost efficient price. But at the same time, I also want to remind everyone that there are things that you would expect for many products that are around that price point that you just don't have here. For example, gyro, you don't have a companion app, but you will be able to wake up the Switch 1, not the Switch 2. You'll be able to use it, however, on those devices as well. You don't have HD rumble or anything like that, but that doesn't matter a whole lot. You do have 1000 hertz polling rate, but I do feel that even though you have a lot of modes, a lot of them are just not going to be used as a whole. So as long as you stick to what works best on the device that you're using it and the game that you're trying to play, I believe you will be for the most part pleased with it. It has a 1000 milliamp hour battery, so that'll give you also, I want to say, at least 12 hours of game time, but it technically should be way more. The one part where I'm unsure is you do have RGB. If you have your trigger rumble activated and then the grip rumble as well, it potentially could, you know, I feel like 12 hours would be realistic, but if you start removing those features, I wouldn't be surprised if you are able to potentially get close to the 20-hour range. Indeed, they don't mention it. I'm not a pro when it comes to battery, but 12 hours for sure is feasible. These are all things that you want to consider, but I feel like it's going to give you more than enough as long as you remember to plug it so that you don't have issues. I don't think that's going to be a big problem for most people. And so that is it. At either $36 to $40, I do believe EasySMX does enough to bring a product to market that is quite interesting. I would say maybe don't go for the limited edition due to the D-pad, even though that could be addressed either by wearing a glove or having, you know, a different texture sticker that you put on top. I just feel like it's a little bit of a miss, you know, to put that little sheen kind of paint or whatever it is on top of it, but the sensation of it was actually quite nice. But you know what would be quite nice? If you were to give me your thoughts on this video and review in the comment box. And as always, consider hitting the like if you enjoyed the content and to subscribe to not miss any future one. I want to thank one more time EasySMX for sending the X05 Pro for review. And of course, I want to thank you for clicking and watching the video. I'm Clef. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.